Oppan Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style.
All right, the customer at this property has asked to replace this coffee station. It's 27 years old. It's got chipping going on right there. There's a refrigerator here that's been non-functional for over 10 years. The compressor for the refrigerator is down over here, and then there's a stove here that that they don't even use. And it's just old and outdated. We're going to replace this with something completely new. We're going to go with white cabinets and a nice countertop over here. And then we're going to have to demo out these top sections because the top section, although it's in reasonably good condition for its age, we're going to demo it out because it's not going to match our bottom, because this color is gray and the bottom is going to be white. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure there's no electricity or water in this station. Right now, that's a garbage disposal. That has juice power going to it, towards it. And I need to find that circuit breaker because it's attached to the side wall of the panel here. It's not labeled. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to use my circuit breaker finder in order to find that circuit breaker and shut it off. So I'm going to put the pulse signal transmitter, I'm going to unplug the garbage disposal, plug this in, and then I'm going to use this, and then I'm going to go to the circuit breaker panel, and I'm going to find the actual circuit breaker, and then I'm going to verify that it's off. That's step one. I still have to kill the stove and make sure the refrigerator has no power going to it too, but I'll start with the easy one, which is the 110 volts going to this garbage disposal. Alright, I am now in the electrical room closest to where my transmitter is for the circuit breaker finder. In the electrical room, there's service panels. It's obviously, the probability is it's not going to be this distribution board. This electrical panel is 277 volt. It's not going to be that panel because I'm dealing with 110 volts. This is 120, 208. This is 120, 208. And this one here is also 120. So it could be any one of these three. This thing looks pretty old. That looks like a newer sub panel. So my probability is high that it's going to be one of these two panels. So just working left to right, I'll just do this one first. I'm going to put this probe on, and I'm simply going to start at the top and work my way down. Now this should be making beeps as it is, all the way down, which is normal. So slowly I'm going to strike each breaker. Now I'm going to do the whole panel one more time. That just, every time it does this, this probe is so smart, it knows exactly which breaker it is. It should only beep now at the breaker. Not that side. Okay. Breaker number 40 is coming up. There's a legend here, and breaker 40 says that it's going to a computer. So before I go ahead and do any testing on breaker 40, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to shut this off, which is going to reset it. I'm going to turn it back on, and I'm going to strike this panel, see if anything comes up. Starting with the left. You got to do the whole panel for the sensitivity to be calibrated each time. Every time you turn the circuit breaker finder off, it resets the calibration. So let's see if we find the breaker now. Okay, breaker 15, labeled vending machine here. Someone hand wrote that in. Okay, number 15 on the legend also says vending machine. So what I'm going to do, I don't mind shutting off a vending machine. I'm I'm going to shut that off. But if my transmitter truly has, if I actually did shut off the right breaker, I should get nothing in this panel right now. So I just reset this again. Let's see if it beeps. Now that's on a 3-pole breaker. It can't be that. But it could be. Actually, this is going to sub-panel 1, unless it's in sub-panel 1. It's possible that this is going into sub-panel 1. That's a broken signal on number 40. But it's interesting that I'm even picking anything up. Let's just see if anything is coming out of sub-panel number 1. Now I think we actually have it. I have one breaker off, panel F, breaker number 15. So I'm going to now go to the garbage disposal and I'm going to see if the electricity is on. F number 15. I'll write that down in my notebook, which is back there. All right, so we came back to the coffee station. The transmitter was plugged in. Now, if the transmitter had electricity going towards it, on the bottom there would be a red light or a K light. The light is off, telling me that I did shut off the correct breaker, which is F number 15. But if I wanted to be doubly sure, I'll take my garbage disposal, I'll plug it back in just the way it was. It's a little hard to see because it's dark back here. Okay, and then I'll try the switch. Okay, yes, so we have the garbage disposal figured out. That one's off. I'll leave the switch on in case somebody throws it on, just in case while I'm working. Now we're working over here on the oven. The oven, okay, when you turn it on, there's a red light here. So we know that this oven has still got electricity going towards it. Again, this is not labeled. We don't know what breaker this is. So now, we don't know that much about this oven as well. Can you see anything? Is it that line?
Yes, it's that one.
Okay. So Terry can see that there's a conduit, a metal conduit going from the bottom of the oven through the cabinet over to here, and it's going into a junction box here. The junction box is not labeled. So we don't know exactly what's happening in there. There's 2 Phillips head screws, so I'm going to open that up and I'm going to see what that looks like. I can expose the wires. I got the cabinet door off, but I can't, nothing's labeled. It's not labeled on either side. So I got to work with live wires for a moment, which I don't like doing, but I do what I have to do in order to get this job done. To work with the live wires properly, I'm going to put on my eye protection and my electrically rated gloves. My gloves are right here. So this way I can pull out a live wire, and in case something goes wrong, I won't get zapped. Alright, so first I'm going to throw on my rubber and then the leather. Then I'm going to pull out those wires and I'm going to see what I've got, whether I've got 110 volts or 240 volt. I can usually tell by the coloring, but I got to open it up a little bit. So it's about as safe as I can get to gain access. Okay, there's 3 colors going up there, white, black, and green. So that must be 110 volts, which is a good thing for me because this particular tracer works with 110 volts, not with a higher voltage. So what I can do is I can throw on jumper cables from the neutral or even the ground to the hot, put my tracer on, and I can find this breaker with not too many problems. It's a blue wire that comes in and feeds it, and then it goes out to a black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my jumpers ready, like so. I keep jumpers inside of here. And I'll show you exactly how to set up the transmitter with jumpers to find it. And again, trying to work the safest way possible, not trying to shut everybody's breaker off in the entire world. Just this one breaker. Alright, so inside of here is my jumpers, right here. Keep 2 jumpers at all times. Now, doesn't matter which one goes on where, red, black, as long as you hit it. And there's no polarity, I don't care about white or black, and neutral and hot here. One of them is going to go to, there's a green exposed screw back here, I can hit that for my neutral, and then once I do that and my transmitter's ready, I'll expose that one blue wire, then I'll connect onto the blue, giving me 110 volts to this transmitter. Then I can use the circuit breaker finder and find the breaker to that and then kill it. Putting back on my electrically insulated gloves with leather protectors. I'm going to expose that one live wire right now. I'm going to try to pull it out so it doesn't touch anything. Trying to do it as safely as possible, but that's just what it is. Okay, here we go. I've got it opened up. Now I'm going to go ahead and touch on with this. And I got a little spark, which is good. Now, can you see that? That's actually lit up red. So we know we've got 110 volts going to that. And then what I can do, gloves are a little time consuming, but they're safe. Now, if I turn that on, there's my pulse right there. Now I'm going to shut this off and reset it. I'm going to go find that pulse back at the electrical panel. Alright, I am back to panel F. The other machine, the garbage disposal, was found in panel F, so I think there's a higher probability that the oven right next to it will be in the same panel. I have to pass through the entire panel once. Then I have to pass through it one more time to try to find it. Okay, hold on. Number 13, just above the vending machine. Makes very logical sense that they ran it that way. Very logical sense. Number 13 over here is labeled kitchen unit. So it's an extremely high probability. I'm going to go ahead and kill it. Okay, the beeping went away. And that's F number 13. Yeah, this panel's empty now, nothing's beeping. I believe I got it, and I got the exact breaker. So I'm just going to make a note in my book. F number 13 does the oven. Alright, so I'm back to the oven now. I'm going to turn the oven on, and there is no light coming on here. The transmitter, which had the, after I've opened up that breaker, which was breaker F number 13, now you'll see that the light's off. Now I can do one other verification just to make sure that I'm working 100% safely. I'm going to take my field piece meter, which has what's called NCV, which is non-contact voltage, which on this meter is this center button right here. Now, as an example, this coffee machine is on right now. I can see that the light says that it's on. While I hold down NCV, I can go to the back electrical line. I don't know if you can hear that, but that's picking up that voltage. You can probably see it over here too. There's a refrigerator in here. Here's the electricity, NCV. And without breaking the insulation, it's picking up that voltage. Now I can do the same thing over here to verify that I'm completely off with the electricity. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to zap everything. Well, I think it's just going to be an induced voltage. And then as one last check, what I'll do is I'll just put my fieldpiece voltometer on volts, and I'll check that hot lead to ground just to see if there's some type of voltage there. So I'll go to voltage, and I'll just see if anything picks up. I'll touch the ground lead in here, and then I'll touch that hot. This metal conduit will be fine. And then I'll touch that. And we're getting about 5 volts. So it's just an induced voltage from some other circuit. That's all that is. And I'll just do one more check. Everything seems to be okay. I believe we're going to be completely safe, and we've got both electrical sources off. So, we're going to go ahead and start the demolition on this circuit, on this unit. What I'm doing is I'm just disconnecting the water lines and taking the electrical box so that everything is disconnected from the bottom of the coffee station. That way it can just be completely removed from the wall and then taken right out. And that's what I'm doing here. The speed right now is running at 32x, just to kind of speed things along. So it did take me a few minutes to disconnect everything underneath the coffee station. Now I'm working on the top. And what I did was, you just see a piece of wood installed on the wall on the bottom. What we did was we installed a piece of wood there as like a ledger or a holding piece that one person can hold it in place with very little effort, while the second person just removed all the screws. Some of the screws were hard to remove, and then here we are just taking it, sliding it out, and then we're going to do the full removal. Okay, so what I did was, because it's a little bit of work to shut off these valves here, and replace these valves, I'm going to leave these angle stop valves in place, and I got an inline valve that I can screw onto here and put some Teflon tape and so forth and screw that on and have a secondary valve. So we can just leave the church key valve open, and then we can now operate the sink once it's installed with these valves right here. But because this wall is going to be fully prepped and painted, rather than get any paint on my brand new valves, I'm going to leave the hot water valve off because it's not needed right now. I do need the cold water valve so I can put this coffee station back up and running. So right now the cold water line is off. Otherwise water would be coming out this T right here. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all of this, and then I'm going to put the valve and everything on so that I can isolate the sink and then operate the coffee station. So go ahead, leave that running, and I'll just go ahead and do that right now. When I finally get down towards this drain line here, I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to address the drain line yet. I might have to straighten this out, get rid of this, but I'll wait till I get to that point. Alright, we're almost at the T. Alright, on this one I'm going to double wrench it, because I don't want to put a lot of stress on that joint. So what I'm going to do is I have another channel lock here, and I'm just going to do a double wrench technique where I hold the T in place with one hand while I remove that valve with my second wrench here, reducing the stress on the rest of the copper. There we go. So there's this one. And I'll probably do the same thing, a double wrench technique on this T right here, holding the church key valve, just trying to reduce that pressure while I do this. Now that should go this way. And I always remember the term righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. As long as you're looking at it straight, that's true. If you are not looking at it straight, it would be opposite. If the pipe was upside down, but this pipe is right side up. So that holds true. Okay, so all that is fine. And they used a pipe dope. I can see residual pipe dope here when they did their job. I have pipe dope and I have Teflon tape. I have both. Now, the way that I want to do this job is I'm going to use, let's see here. I did purchase a T, and I did purchase a 1/2-inch connector there. But, you know what? I can still use that T. That's going to be perfectly fine. I should have left that actually in place. I'm going to reinstall that, and I'm going to reuse that T. So I'm going to put some pipe dope on here. I have a better one back at the office. I should have brought the other one, but this one will still do the job. Got my Teflon tape. Let me put some Teflon tape on there. So this way I'm pretty much going to guarantee that this one should not leak. When I double up like that, Teflon tape with pipe dope, it's usually a very good technique to practically, not 100%, but give you a really good chance of not having a leak at this joint. Alright, so there's that. Just going to try to clean that off a little. Got a little bit down there. I'm just going to try to clean that off before I put it together. Okay. Actually, I'm going to reuse this. Try to keep it clean. Yeah, copper is so expensive these days. Why not?
There's no security longer, huh?
Give me a few days and you'll have it back.
All right.
Alright. I'm going to do the double wrench technique on this again. Holding that down. Okay, I'm going to loosen up that jar a little bit. Just spin that around. Alright. Right about like that. It's not bad. I would like that because this is where I'm going to put a 1/2-inch line going out to here for the coffee station. That's going to be this adapter, which I just purchased at the depot. So if I take this, put this on, that's going to transition from 1/2 to 1/4. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here with Teflon tape, some dope on there. Alright, now just again give me a good probability of no leaks. So let me go ahead and put that around. And so I put on the pipe dope first, and then some Teflon tape. Always have to put this on the right way so that, see the way it breaks off. Now you'll see the way I'm threading this in. It's not unwinding while I'm threading it in. It's tightening up. Hang on 1 second. There we go. Okay, so you have to make sure you put the Teflon tape on the correct way, so it does not unwind on you. I'm going to double wrench this up, hold that while I tighten this connection. double wrench, you're putting less stress on everything else. And there, that one's good to go. Doesn't have to be Hercules tight, but it has to be pretty tight. Next, for me to do the coffee station, I gotta come out of there with a 1/4 inch nipple. That's this. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the exact same thing that I've been doing. Is I'm just going to give myself some of this. This container's a little old, so I'm scooping down there. I should have got a new one. I'll bring a new one next time. But this one will still work. I can still work with this one. It's just a little bit older, a little bit more harder to work with. Because I'm going to double up on this with this and Teflon, so there's still a good probability that it will be fine, no matter what. Alright, there we go for that. Now I'm going to flip it around. It's a little dirty, hands get a little dirty when you do this. So you just got to, you can either wear gloves or just accept the fact that you're going to get a little dirty while you do this job. And there's that one. Now I'll Teflon tape that up. I like to keep my Teflon tape as flat as possible so it goes on the threads, not crinkled up. And I like to wrap it approximately 3 times for this size diameter. And there's that one right there. And okay, it's just on there, finger tight. Now what I'll do is I'll again double wrench this up. I'll hold the joint that I just did and I'll tighten up that second one and get that one in. So what we did was we just put the cabinets together just to see what they were going to look like before we do it at the actually install the cabinets. We put the countertop on top, just sitting there with some spacers underneath. The reason why we put spacers is because there's a lip here that will need to, if we didn't put the spacers, the lips would hit the drawers. So we want to put the spacers in there, make sure that it's completely level. And then what we did was we took the sink, which is going to be this right here, and then looked at the directions and then figured out exactly where we wanted our sink to line up here to make sure that it was centered to the center of the sink basin. And then we put some blue tape down and then marked the exact cutout locations of exactly where the cutouts need to be. On the sink itself, these are the rails that hold it in place with the screws. So the cutout is actually just on this side of these rails. And I kind of rounded the corners here because they don't need to be at 90-degree angles. It's a little bit stronger if they're not at 90-degree angles. Everything looks good here for me to just simply drill into this laminate top and then use this jigsaw in order to go ahead and cut all the way around. But there's one problem. And the problem is on the back cut. The back cut is it's like less than 1/2 inch of exactly the back rail here, and taking my jigsaw and measuring from the blade to the rail here, I actually need about 1 1/4 inches, and it's going to be less than 1 inch. So this tool cutting from the top down isn't going to work. So the way that I'm going to get by that is I'm going to drill a small hole on each side of the line, go and then turn this over on these sawhorses that I have. And I've got blankets down, so this way I will not disturb or scratch the laminate surface. We're being real gentle so that this laminate surface is just going to be in pristine condition when we actually install it. So what I'm going to do is drill a small pilot hole here and here, and then flip it over, draw a line, and then from the back side I'm going to cut. And then hopefully this won't chip out that much while I'm doing that, but I cannot do it with this. I also, with a jigsaw, I also have a Sawzall, because I was considering doing it with the Sawzall, but even the Sawzall is really going to be not, it's still too big. So I'm going to have to do it from the back side. So I'll do that one cut first, and then I'll do the other cuts. Okay. Here I am drilling two small pilot holes from the top down. And then I'm going to flip this over, line up the two holes, use a level, and make a line so that now that's my cut line. Then I'm going to use a larger drill bit, large enough so that I can fit the jigsaw through. So that'll be the first hole that I cut, is a drill bit so that I on the inside of the line, and then I can put the jigsaw together and then cut that line. Then that there is my first cut from the back side. And I'm going to flip it over again, use the drill bit on the inside section, drill down so that I can put my jigsaw through again. And basically this clip is just me cutting out the sink hole and trying to do that with precision, cutting on the line, because I want that to be as tight as possible so that the sink is resting on as much countertop material as possible, and at the same point in time making sure that the cuts are straight. So that's what this clip is all about. I have to flip it over again to round out the back corners, and there's the front section right there. And the whole thing's going to come out in just a second. There I am just marking the pencil for the back. Round out the back corners there. Then I'm going to flip it over one more time for the final cut. And then that's the whole thing. Recording now at 4x speed. Now that the hole's been cut out, I dropped the sink in to make sure that it was going to fit. It does fit, and it is squared up. Now that I've done that, it's a good time for me to put in the basket strainer as well as the faucet, because I've got easy access with it being outside of the cabinet. There's the basket strainer, and then my assistant was getting the faucet ready. So there I am taking apart the sink strainer, and I'm using plumber's putty is the first thing that I'm going to do. So the first thing I do is take plumber's putty, roll it up to about the size of a pinky, and then put that all the way around. That's going to create the gasket when it compresses in place. So after you put the plumber's putty down all the way, then you push that down into the sink. Then I'm going to end up flipping the sink over, and then I'm going to put down the black rubber gasket, then the cardboard friction ring, and then the lock nut. And then I'm going to hold the whole thing together. I've got a couple of tools to hold the basket strainer assembly in place. That's that tool right there. And then I have a special wrench for that big, large nut, basket strainer nut right there. It's that special wrench right there. I'm going to tighten that up, and I'm going to get that to the proper tension. And then I'm going to flip over the sink again, and then some of the plumber's putty squeezed out, which it should have, creating the good seal. So that way I've got a good seal on that sink, and that's how that works. While I was removing the putty right here, I noticed that the basket strainer still was a little loose, so I flipped it back over and put the double wrench back on it so that I could get some more tension on that.
and then I just kept wiggling it to see if I could move it with my hand. I wanted to make sure that it was pretty tight. I mean, I really don't want to be able to move it with my hand. I want it to be at least that tight.
All right, I checked the directions. Directions are not asking for plumber's putty, so all I'm going to do is put the gasket on. There is a right and a wrong way to do this. They do have a reveal in here that fits right inside of this chrome just right. So I'm going to make sure that I do it that way. And it kind of just snaps into place. Actually, it looks like a reasonable fit. Put that in place like so. And just take these, tighten them up underneath, and pretty much after we do the installation, hook up the water lines. Now, we don't know what water lines we're going to have. I bought 3 different sizes, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up using the best size, and then whatever it is that I don't want, I'll just simply return back to the Home Depot. And that way I'll get a perfect fit and only, I can get it done in the first shot. It's nice to be able to do it like this because I can actually verify that I'm actually nice and centered. Normally, if you're doing this, you're underneath the sink and you gotta climb out from underneath, you gotta figure out what's happening. Right now, I can actually center this super perfect right from this side, and this is just so much easier. So this is a reason why you want to install this now before you actually do a full installation and then install it. Be more work. Okay, that's nice and tight, and that's going to work out just fine. So the faucet, the sink basin, the faucet is installed. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the sink out of here. This empty hole, I'm going to end up putting a soap dispenser, which we don't have yet, so that's going to have to wait. So there's what the back of your sink is going to look like, the bottom of your sink. And the hot water line has a little tag on it. It's the longer of the two. These are 1/2-inch connections. All that is no problem. That's going to be super easy to connect once we're actually installed. I'm just going to put this down since I don't need it. I'm going to pull out this blue tape, and then I already did a dry fit, so I know that that is going to work for me really, really well. Now I'm going to clean off this countertop, and I'm going to put down silicone.
Getting ready to put the sink down. I'm using 100% pure silicone. I've already cleaned off all the blue tape, did a dry fit on the sink, and it works fine. So here you see me laying down a bead of silicone. This particular silicone is an oil-based silicone, not a water-based, and the drying time on it is only 30 minutes before it's really tack-free. So here I laid down the bead of silicone, put the sink in place, pressing into the silicone, and then I climbed underneath to put the clips on. The clips took longer than I thought to put on, so I wish that what I had done was cleaned up the excess silicone that spilled over on top before I did the clips. So that's one thing that I should have done that I will do in the future. So just FYI on that one, clean the silicone up first before it dries.
All right, so now you can see the wall has been fully prepped, painted, and it actually looks very nice. The first thing that I wanted to do was find out where the high spot in my floor is, because floors and walls are never level. So I measured out the floor, and I found that the high spot is right here, right where this junction box is located. So I'm going to take the high spot of the floor, and I'm going to measure up from there 34.5 inches, because from there to the cabinet is 34.5 inches. Everything else is going to have shims underneath it in order to level.
Okay, so here I have a line on the wall, 34.5 inches from the high spot, level line going across on the blue tape. Here I'm checking to see the stud locations, I'm verifying that with my drill, and then this board here I'm going to install below the 34.5 inches so that my cabinets can screw into this particular board. Here I'm just marking this board where the studs are located, and then I'm going to drill out the holes so that way the screws aren't going to have to labor through that particular board. Then I'm going to then I'm countersinking them so that the screws that go in here are going to be completely flat, so they won't be sticking out at all. So then I'm just going to put that board up to where I want the cabinets to screw into them, and I'm just getting it nice and level, and then attaching that to the studs, and then from there I'll attach the cabinets.
We used mineral spirits and rubbing alcohol in an effort to get all the dried silicone around the edge, and did a pretty reasonable job, but in the future you definitely want to make sure that you get the silicone off before it dries. It's too difficult and too much time consuming to work with it while it is in a dried state. Okay, right now we're prepping to put on this laminate decorative end panel on the end of this countertop. Now the way that you purchase it as a kit, so it comes with both the left and the right. We don't need the one on the other side because the other side's going against the wall. We only need this side. This side's going to be exposed. Now, they sell it with these particle wood strips, as well as this here, and nails. When you put this in, you can go ahead and put the back plate on first, and you want the particle wood that's there's a smooth side and a rough side. You want the rough side facing out. So you can put this one in first, then you can go ahead and nail this one right here. Then we're going to go ahead and heat up the iron, and then we're going to put this on. The way that they sell this, it needs to be trimmed out. Now the directions want you to use a file in order to file this down, but it's a lot of work and there's going to be so much material that what we're going to do is we're going to use a router, and we're going to smooth this out with a router after it's set up. Then we'll go ahead and file off the remaining edge. That'll be a lot faster. And also the job will come out much cleaner and less damage to this laminate end panel. So that's what we're going to do. We're just waiting for the iron to heat up. And then I'm going to start kind of adhering this down. And I don't want to burn the laminate. I'm just trying to heat this up in order to activate the glue underneath. Okay, what we did was we're getting ready to take the doors off so we can work on the joining the cabinets together and so forth. But before we did that, we just labeled the doors, put some blue tape down and labeled them 1, 2, 3, 4, left to right, so we know exactly which door goes with which cabinet. We'll also put some blue tape inside here and just label this number 1, so this way we know door 1 goes with cabinet 1, so because these two ends we don't want to get confused with. So that's one step that we took. Okay, because this cabinet is going to be up against the wall and this door opens this way, I'm going to put in a filler strip. Now I'd like to put in like a 1-inch filler strip, or even a 3/4 of an inch filler strip at the very least amount. But in this case, I have to go with a 1/2-inch filler strip. And the reason why is because this cabinet, this countertop is exactly 6 feet. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to buy the next largest size and then cut it. And there's only so much distance here that I can make up before this is actually being shown. So in order to keep this countertop as much over this way as possible, to give as much strength, because if this was at the very edge here, it'd be like all weird. I'm gonna only use just a very small 1/2 inch. Now I've already cut it to 1/2 inch, the filler strip. One side is the factory finish and one side is my cut side. I'm gonna put the cut side facing towards the wall. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I can see how big my stile is, so I've got screws that are longer than 1/2 inch but won't go through the other side of the stile. And I'm going to use a counter sunk head bit with my drill. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the top, I'm going to get that perfectly flush, and I'm going to go ahead and sink in and pre-drill the first hole. I'm going to make sure that this winds up flush, because I cannot have this sticking out at all, because it's going to be right tight up against the wall, so I don't want that sticking out. So let me go ahead and get that going, and then I'll get all of them going. Yeah. And then I'll just keep following that down the line. Okay, so we put our 1/2 inch filler strip, and I only want 1/2 inch, but because this wall is out of plumb, or out of level, I'm resting here at the bottom, but not at the top. Let's just see how level the cabinet is here, just to make sure that it's not the cabinet, because the cabinet needs to be 100% level when I'm done. Now, if anything, this side needs to be picked up slightly, which would even make that worse than what it is. So if I was to do that and make that 100% level, let's see, that would need to go, let's just see how much that does. That's approximately level right there. I'm up against the wall. I got a gap over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this pencil right here, and I'm going to hold it up against the wall, and that is going to reasonably, well, it should even be, I should actually be using a compass, but I don't have a compass with me. So what I'm going to do is just use this, hold that up against the wall in order to create that. And then I'm going to cut. I'm going to remove this filler strip and I'm going to cut it and then bring that back down that way. Okay, I've cut that filler strip. It's got a little bit of a gap there, which I'll make up with some white caulking. But it's up against the wall, which is what I want. Now I want to level this cabinet before we do anything else. Now, this cabinet is low because the highest part in the wall is behind it. So this cabinet needs to come up at least 3/16 of an inch. Alright, so what I did was I shut off the water, and then I disconnected the water line so that I could bring in the sink base cabinet. Then brought it in and put it up. There's no shims here on the right side, but I've got shims here on the left side. Now I'm checking the level, and it actually is leveling out just right. Let me check the back and forth. That actually looks pretty good. The problem that I'm having is that this wall is not level. So what I'm going to have to do is I have to put a shim in the back of this cabinet here to keep my level line going this way because the wall is out of level. So that'll be fine, it's just I'll have to shim that out. So before I anchor this to the wall, I want to connect these stiles together. Now the way to do that is with these clamps right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that in place. Hang on 1 second. And then I'm going to make sure that that's just right. I'll put one at the top, one at the bottom. Okay. Alright. I'm going to make sure that the cabinet is 100% flush. So I'm going to loosen that up and get that so it's just right. So when I tighten down, it'll hold in place at an exact flush fit. Now, I also want to hide my screws. So what I'm going to do, using my countersunk head bit, I know that right here is the door cabinetry. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put this about 1/4 of an inch below so that the actual hinge itself will hide it. Actually, I'll go above because I'm hitting this. You know what I'll do is I'll just relocate this up one. That's all right. I'll just drill it on top. This way, this will be completely hidden with the plate on the door. Make sure that you countersunk head that in so that way your screw head doesn't mess up your hinges either. Alright, I only had 2-inch screws. 2.5 inch would have been ideal, so I just kind of countersunk head in this a little bit. This is all going to be buried by the hinges for the doors anyway, so the customer will never see these holes. And now when I remove this, these stiles should remain in a perfect condition, which is exactly the condition that I wanted them to stay in. That is the whole reason why I did that. Alright, actually I think I'll do one more up here to give that nice joining surface on the top. So let's see here. Let's go with one of these here. Right about like that. We're going to put one up here at the top as well. Probably a 1 1/4 inch screw will be ideal here, which I should have right here. There we go, and then that'll keep that a little tighter. Actually, I need to go a little more. I need to go 1 5/8. Which I believe is this one here, 1 5/8. There we go. And then that will join that together. Let me make it a little bit more solid here. There we go. Now that little part sticking off, I do have to trim that out. little bit there also has to come out too. That has to be perfectly flush for the way that I'm going to anchor this down. There we go. And that'll be fine like that. Alright, now that that style is good, I'm going to put a shim in the back and anchor this to the wall. And I'm going to need this to be right about here. Like so. Alright. And I'm going to check that the cabinet is level, coming out straight. If there's anything wrong, I can make an adjustment. You know, I did come out too much. So let me take that back. And I can see from my perspective that this should be, hang on a second, that's a cut one. Let me get this one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to push it back, give my shim some tension, and then I'll push the cabinet forward. Actually, right there is perfect. Let's see, this cut one might be perfect as well, so I don't even need to use a full one. Yeah, this one's going to work out just fine. I got that shim in place right here. That's the center of it. And before I do a drill, I'm just going to verify that I'm good. And yeah, that does look good. See if I can line up the back. Yeah, it's hard to see back there, but that should be good right there. So I'm going to drill that one out and anchor that right to the header that I got in the back. This holder bracket here. So let me go ahead and put that in. I'll go with 1 5/8", holding that to the wall. Okay, there's that. Now I'm going to put in another one. Let's see if I need to put a shim in or if I can just do it directly. It looks like I can just go. Well, I might want to ever so small shim in here. That's actually going to be fine as is. Doesn't even need one. So, let me go ahead and put that countersunk back in. And go with 1 5/8", which is this one. That's 100% anchored. 2 in the wall and 2 in the stile. So these are anchored to one another, and that's good.